Well, if you would just hold still.
Snug.
It's all part of the process. Oh, hey, welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If you've never listened to the show before, welcome. If you have listened to the show before, welcome back. You have my sincerest gratitude. In addition to providing entertaining and informative photography-related info, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. At the moment, I'm working on a photography project where I have been documenting the crew. You know, having a sense of time when you're traveling in space can be pretty difficult. So these images are one of the ways we can view the passage of time. And speaking of photography projects, on this episode of The Nerdy Photographer, I speak with Lucas Vanderlende about choosing long-term and personal photography projects and how to stay motivated to complete those projects. That discussion right after the break.
Snug.
It's a long exposure. There's now members only content on the Nerdy Photographer YouTube channel. That's right. Head over to youtube.com/@KCFatchett or click on the link in the episode notes. Go over, get a membership, and you will get access to special behind the scenes videos, members only shorts, both the funny kind and, the learning kind, exclusive instructional content, and even members only Q&A sessions where your questions take center stage. That's right. You can ask all of your questions about photography. Go deeper, learn more, become part of the inner circle. Don't miss out. Hit that join button on our YouTube channel and take your experience to the next level. Hello and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett, and I'm here today with Lucas Vanderlende. Lucas, welcome, fellow Michigander. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Before we get into the main conversation, it's time to roll the dice breaker. It's a 14. And Lucas, so if you could pick your perfect dinner party guests, let's keep it to 3.
Okay.
Living or dead, who would they be?
Oh, man. Honestly, I don't know if it's just because it's playoff season, but we were just talking about the Lions, and I got to go with Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It just like...
I think that's a perfect... Yeah, I'm coming to that party. I'm coming to the dinner party. Man, we're living the high life as Lions fans right now, and I see some people saying like, "Oh, bandwagoners." People, I'm like, whatever, jump on. I don't care. It's fine. I'm just soaking in it right now, and really enjoying where we're at as Lions fans. And I'm hoping this comes out sometime around when we're celebrating a Super Bowl championship. Lucas, tell listeners a little bit about your photo journey so they have a sense of what your background in photography is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been a professional photographer for just over a decade now. I grew up in a home that really celebrated the arts, and my dad has been a commercial photographer for 50 years. And I grew up in a studio, kind of watching him, and I always felt like that was just what everybody's dad did. Everybody's dad took photos all the time and had his own studio. And I quickly realized that that was not the case. And I worked with my dad for a little bit. He taught me the basics of photography. And from there, I fell in love with it for myself and was able to go off and develop my own style, find my own passion, and ultimately turn it into a career, which has been incredible.
It's one of those things that's that I don't know. Both of my parents, neither one were professional photographers, whatever, but they both took pictures in completely different ways. My mom liked to take photos that she could then use in her crafts. Like she would make cards, like she would greeting cards, whatever, like handmade stuff, and then she would like incorporate her photos of flowers or snowy landscapes into like, she cut it out and like put it into her, mat it onto her cards. Whereas my dad
Mm.
was a fire investigator, and so he
Okay.
was taking a lot of pictures, like technical photos for work. But then he would be like he would take pictures, whenever we had like, at Christmas or whatever, and he was just like, he wasn't even looking through the camera. This is like he's shooting film. He's just like, oh, I'm taking pictures of people getting like laughs and reactions. So it was like very
Yeah.
incorporated a lot of different styles for me when I finally decided to get into photography. Like they had a lot of different influences there. Um, so you work on a lot of projects, I would say, like, as far as
Yeah.
like long term stuff. What is your process for choosing a subject for your projects? Or do you look for a
Yeah.
personal connection, like visual appeal? What is it that gets your juices flowing and makes you feel like this is something good to go after?
A lot of times, so I always have ideas. I carry a field notes journal on me, and whenever I come up with an idea, I write it down and then I kind of percolate on it. Um, but a lot of my long-term projects I kind of stumble into. So, a couple summers ago, I realized I live in a beach town uh, on Lake Michigan. It's a beach tourist town, and we have a pretty iconic pier. And my wife and I would walk down the pier every single night in the summer. And as a photographer, I just always had my camera on me. I love street photography. And I just was taking pictures every night. And then I'm looking at these pictures and I'm like, wait, this is a good long term project. And that's turned into my Life on the Pier project, kind of giving a more local perspective to the area that I love around the pier. And that one just came from looking at my negatives and being like, man, I have a lot of things around this, and now I'm shooting it a lot more intentionally.
Mm,
And uh and going out, I've always had specific photos that I would like to create, but being a street photographer, it just kind of, you have to let it come to
yeah,
you and let it unfold before you. And so that was how that one came about. And then I'm also doing a national parks uh, long-term project, which came about because my wife and I, one of our goals as a couple is to visit all the national parks in America together. And I got through, we went to about three or four of them. And I was like looking at a book by Ansel Adams, classic. And I'm like, it'd be cool to make my own version of this and travel to all the parks and have like my 6 to 10 best photos from those parks
right.
and compile it into a bigger project. But that one will probably take a lifetime to complete. So
Yeah, there's something about scale of projects. There's, I have a project that I'm working on right now that I'm finishing up. It's a year long project. And
mhm,
then, I've got other things that, yeah, same sort of like they're different terms. There's like, oh, this is just going to be ongoing for
yep,
however long it goes. And, maybe I'll get to a point where I think that I've encapsulated it. Hope, who knows? Because honestly, like
yeah,
as photographers, we generally like don't think it's done. Um, it's funny. Also, I know the town and the pier that you're talking about, and I have
yeah,
friends who have a house there. I'm kind of wondering if they've ended up in any of your photos.
maybe,
It's possible. Um, but yeah, the stumbling into things is a valid way to start a project. I think that some people think that
yeah,
it's like, oh, that's not legitimate. You have to have everything planned out. I too have like piles and piles of notes. You can't see it from there.
yeah,
But it's just like it's a podcast. It's audio. People can't see
yeah,
it. I'm just holding up like lists of notes and things. I'm constantly writing down ideas for things and thinking like, oh, this might be a good idea. And then sometimes I'll
yep,
revisit those and go, yeah, that was a good idea. Maybe how do I refine that and make it a little
yep,
more poignant? Or like you said, you stumble into something and go like, okay, how do I make this
Yeah.
coalesce into a thing that has an intention to it, as opposed
Yep.
to just sort of a free form. So,
Well, and the other part of it is trusting your eye, and that's something that I've learned just through practice. Is if I find something that I keep coming back to in my photos, and maybe it wasn't intentional, but like with the pier, like walking that every single night and taking pictures every night, like you could argue there's like you don't have like why would I be taking pictures of essentially the same thing, air quotes,
right.
every single night? But there was something that gravitated me towards that, and so trusting my eye and then seeing that repetition and link in my work, and then being like, okay, if that captivates me, then it will probably captivate other people.
That leads me to two other places. One, I was going to say that, what do you think is the criteria? What makes something strong enough, like a topic or an idea strong enough
Mm.
to kind of take on as a longer term project in your mind? Um, so it really just has to, like, you find that it like really connects with your style or with your personal vision, or what is it?
Yeah, yeah, I think it just one of the things uh growing up in this area for this Life on the Pier project specifically, um wanting to do something different and show a side of my area that that isn't always photographed, and and that always captivates me and wants me to like I always want to show something unique in my photographs as much as I can. But yeah, I think it just trusting my eye and seeing where it takes me. And then I I joke because my dad, he's been photographing for longer than 50 years. He's done it professionally for 50 years, but he's photographed for longer than that. And he always said that he's a shooter.
Right.
And uh, I'm a shooter. That like when I'm out taking pictures, I'm gonna take the picture and then I'll save the rest for editing Lucas later.
Yeah.
And then I can go through and because you don't have to show everything that you take,
Right.
and you can cull it down and make it presentable. But the yeah, there's more losers than winners in my projects. That's
I
for
mean,
sure.
that's the way it goes. I mean, this project that I'm working on right now is with my dog, and I'm using film that I found, like expired film that I found in my parents' house after they passed away,
Yeah.
and it got me back into shooting film again.
Mm.
Um, but it's also like something like realizing there are things that you did. They're going to be failures. Like
Yeah.
I get the ones back that are just like, this is great. Like, this is a fantastic photo. And then there's like, oh yeah, I forgot. I can't like manually focus on a sprinting border collie that fast and really track, like there's some where I'm like, oh yeah, this came out really nice. You really get the sense that she's a blur when she
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
but there are things that just don't work. And you have to be willing
Yeah.
to do that and fail sometimes and go, all right, this is okay. This
Yep.
leads me to the successes. Um, this is also big, out of curiosity. You're familiar with a movie, Harvey Keitel film called Smoke? Have you ever seen
Yeah.
this? Yeah, where he has
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
been a while.
Yeah, he goes outside of his tobacco shop and takes a photo at the same time every day from in the same
Mhm.
location for years, and he just has like books full of uh, photos from that, like, at the same time, same spot every day. Whereas
Yep.
it might seem like the same thing, like you said
Yep.
before, it's not. The world
Nope.
changes, things are different. It's
Yep.
just even what we might consider mundane in
Yeah.
some way, time and circumstance can make it really interesting. And sometimes it's the seeing how things change over time that really is what grabs you.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, and even the you think of some of the great street photographers and just photographers and you look at their work, and it's not like they set it up to look old. They were documenting the world that they were in.
Right. Yeah. It's just that was the time and the place that they were in. And I think it's having a curiosity
Yep.
about the world around you and places and people and whatever. And that's what comes across, I think, in very good photographers' work is that they are curious about their subject.
Yeah.
They want to know something about it or capture a particular thing about their subject that, maybe not everybody sees or knows, or that's what really elevates the work. How do you, Lucas, remain
Yeah.
curious when you're working on a long-term project? Because I think that's something that I have fallen victim to in the past is, like getting into it and I'm like really excited about it, but maintaining that curiosity.
Yeah.
I sometimes find myself hitting a wall of like, oh, now I'm in the project and it becomes work
Yep.
and it becomes like, oh, I'm got to get this. And I'm not
Yeah.
as, curious or, whimsical, playful with it as I might,
Yeah.
that might like help me maintain a bit of a spark.
I think for me, I mean, I live in a Four Seasons area, and I know you are as well, right? So having the seasons kind of come and go help, specifically for the life on the pier, help give me different looks of the same thing, and that in and of itself keeps my curiosity going. I've got some photos that I want to take this winter of people out surfing by the pier,
Mm.
and um, specifically like some of these guys have big beards like me, and they're just covered in ice when they come out in their wetsuits, and but just trying to have yeah, keeping things different enough. Sometimes it's just I shot a lot of this project on my M6, and sometimes it's just taking a different camera um, and using a different medium instead of using film, shooting digital, or just messing around, going during different times of day. And those are the things that kind of keep me curious and trying, because especially if I want to have people in it and have a lot of people, which is part of my goal with this series, then summer is a big season for that because it's covered in ice most of the winter.
Yeah.
And so, but also trying to capture it in all of the seasons and trying to, I mean, it's as I'm saying it, it feels more daunting. Um, and I'm like, I thought I was pretty close on this, but now I know that there's more shots that I wanna add to it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that I think that people can, listeners or anybody who's like thinking about engaging in a longer term photo project is it can evolve over time and you can start
Yep.
thinking about different things. I mean, the project that I'm working on with my dog, I wanted to like capture like walking with her because it's such a big part of
Mhm.
what we do. We go out for hikes and we do, um, she loves it. She loves to run around. The freedom of it, but also how well trained she is.
Yeah.
And but it's also me understanding that my time with her is fleeting,
Yeah.
and those are the things I really want to like remember and capture. But then I started thinking like, oh, when we also go other places that she
Mhm.
really like. She loves to go to Home Depot, and I started thinking like I
Yeah.
need to get some shots of us at Home Depot because she goes to
Yeah.
go to Home Depot and meet all the people who want to like talk to her and see her. My photo lab, like we started going there and like everybody like comes out from behind the counters to like pet. She is in her element. Like when people are coming to say, I'm like, hey, I gotta add
Yeah.
this into this because this is a big part of like what she enjoys about going out
Yeah.
is meeting people along the way and making friends with people and having them pay attention to her and tell her she's pretty. But like
Yeah.
that is part of it. Like that has grown in like the last like I said, I'm getting close to the end of this, but then it just sort of like dawned on me, oh, that's something I need to add into this because that is definitely a part. Like, it can
Definitely.
evolve and not being so harsh on yourself, like rigid to
Yeah.
not consider evolving in the project. You may continue to, it might be an offshoot of the project. You might continue like having whatever rules you set up for yourself in the beginning, but also doing something else as well. But I guess
Definitely.
that kind of brings me to my next question is like maintaining, it said maintaining curiosity, but what about maintaining motivation in a
Yeah,
long-term
that's
project?
a big one. Because there's when you're doing long-term projects, there's a lot of uh not fun stuff that you have to deal with. The data management, the storage, backups, uh, film archiving, um, all of that stuff is not as fun. I just went through and printed a bunch of the images that I've taken and then almost immediately tossed half of them because I'm like, nope, these didn't work. And the motivation can be difficult to hold on to for me. Uh, but during when I feel myself making it feel like work, uh, that's when I know I need to just take a break and go because at the end of the day, I'm not making money off of these personal projects.
Right.
Would I like to someday? Maybe, but really I want to create art and put it out into the world and hopefully have somebody else feel something when they see the work. Um, and so one of the ways that I stay motivated is by doing short-term projects and kind of pivoting a little bit. This winter, actually, I'm gearing up to start shooting this week because I live in a four seasons state. Most of my life right now is night, wake up, go to work, it's dark, I leave work, it's dark again. And so this short series is in the dark
Mm.
and going to be shooting 4x5 for my first time in a project and trying to do long exposure images around my hometown again. But we've got some really unique neon signs
Mm.
and there it's also just kind of a unique time of year because it's dark but because there's a full moon right now and there it's kind of cloudy, it almost feels brighter
Mm.
than the like midsummer uh pitch
Evenings. Yeah.
black evenings. So yeah, that's one of the my kind of break projects and it's a lot shorter and I'll knock it out probably in less than a month and move on.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I always try to tell people is that they can, stepping back is okay, but also having, uh, when I talk about setting goals every year, is having short term goals, having like little things that you can do each month that you accomplish, and it just makes you feel better about yourself and what you're
Yep,
doing because you're like, oh, I got this done, I got it done, I made. Whereas I might not get all the way, having goals that you can accomplish just makes you feel you're leveling up.
yeah,
You've gotten to a point where like everything is, like I've finished this, and you get those endorphins
yep.
for the good brain chemicals start rushing in, and you're like, I'm ready to go back to that long term thing and work on that for a while.
Well, and when your to-do list gets so long and you've got other projects that you've come up with that you wanna do, but you already have such a long list of things that you wanna do, then getting something that you can knock out and then check off the list
Right.
when you haven't checked something off that list in a while, snowballs.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You start to feel like, oh, we're moving in the right direction. You need a win. Sometimes
yep,
you feel like, oh, okay, I need a win. I need to check something off. I need to like get that forward momentum going.
absolutely.
So, how do you think, like, why do you think personal photography projects are important for photographers, especially those who are, working professionally and, you have the business side of things?
Yep.
It, why do you think that it's important for photographers to have just personal stuff that doesn't relate to work?
I think it's so important. It's uh it's one of the ways that I prevent myself from burning out with my job because uh I work for a church as their video and media producer. And so every day I'm either filming, photographing, or editing something there.
Hmm.
And I love my job. I love doing it, but it's not always my vision. Um, and before that, I worked in commercial photography, shooting riveting stuff like lunch boxes in studio. And during that time, it definitely wasn't my vision. Uh, and so having something that you can just create for yourself, and even if it never gets put out there or becomes a book or becomes anything, because like that's a daunting task in and of itself. Um, you at least have something that you've created yourself. My YouTube channel for uh, a large part of why that came to be is because I was uh, feeling myself get burnt out at work. And I'm like, I need to have something that is mine that I
Yeah.
can create and make whatever I want to do. I don't have to send it off for reviews. I don't have to get approvals. I can just film it and upload it and talk about whatever I want.
Right. It's yours. You have ownership over it. It is not
Yep.
a like client obligation. There's no like the only person you have to answer to is yourself. I think that's. I
Yep.
mean, as somebody who's done the 25 years of this, and it's like having that ability to be like, okay, I don't have to go to somebody else is
Yep.
is so relieving. It's stressful in its own way
Yeah.
because the pressure is all on you to make it happen. But at
Yep.
the other times, like where it's just like, okay, no, nobody else is telling me how or what I need to do to make this work. And it can be such a release valve for all the other stuff.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, I don't know of anybody who's gone into professional photography uh, who just went into it because they thought it would be a good business plan or good business model. I think almost everybody has gotten into photography because they were passionate about it at one point for sure.
Yeah.
And doing things that help keep that passion alive because there needs to be some sort of why to why you're doing it. And I think when it becomes a job, that why is money.
Right.
And before it was a job, the why was I love taking photos and I love creating something.
Oh yeah. That is definitely I mean, a roadblock that I've come up against numerous times along the way in my life as a photographer. I mean, I started out taking pictures when I was a teenager, just really loved doing it. I moved to New York to be an actor. But I was like taking pictures of other actors, doing headshots and band photos to like
Hmm.
get a little extra money here and there. And then I started doing
Yeah.
weddings because I thought, oh, I can make some money at this. And then I got
Yeah.
involved in like weddings, and I love them. I enjoy people, and there's almost a performance aspect to every wedding
Hmm.
day. But there are still those things that like come up, like, oh, this is about money sometimes,
Yep.
and it's just like, okay, and trying to take a deep breath and say, what is it about this that I love to do? And let's adjust and get back to that stuff as opposed to only thinking about like the business side of it.
Yep.
Having personal projects, which I have, many of, also like looking at the work side of it and going like, how do I make this more what I enjoy? What can I
Yeah.
outsource? What can I get off
Yeah.
my plate that I don't have to sit here and like think about? Oh, this is just a pain. Because the more
Yep.
you're sitting there thinking that, the less interested you are, and if it is your job and it is how you pay your bills, you're gonna your work product suffers if
Yep.
you don't if you if you don't like what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's hard to find that motivation sometimes.
Yeah. So for photographers who are just starting out or who have never done like a long term project or a personal project, how would you recommend they proceed, or like how they choose a subject, or like set themselves up for success?
Yeah. I think something that's worked well for me, uh, I mentioned it earlier, but just going through the old photos that I've taken and seeing, looking at them uh, maybe a bit more critically and seeing if there's a theme to them. And if there's a theme to it, then you might have a project that you could start adding those guardrails to and being more intentional with. But if you've got nothing that you're looking at and you're like, I don't know, I feel like I'm just taking pictures. Um, there's some great, I mean, photography challenges that you can do. Like there's the 365 photos in a year challenge. There's the uh, set your camera to one setting and don't change it for a month and just see what adding um, constraints to your images does. But I think at the end of the day, you just have to go out and take pictures. And if you go out every day and take pictures, and I assume if you're listening to a podcast about nerdy photography, you take pictures. Like I help people who are interested in photography, and they're like, "How do I get better at this?" And they're like, I'm like, just take more pictures.
Right.
Like, take pictures every day. And they're like, we don't have anything to take pictures of. Like,
Find something.
find something. Make
It's one of
something that's boring, not boring.
right, and I think that's uh yeah, there are little exercises you can do that can lead you into things that all of a sudden your brain starts spinning over a topic, like you're talking about
Yep.
limiting yourself. There's a I always tell people, probably because I started in film, is
Hmm.
like the first thing I do, limit the number of photos you can take.
Yeah.
Okay, I've only got 24 exposures. I'm not talking about like
Yep.
taking your digital camera out there and, oh, I'm only going to pick 24 pictures out of what I took. No, you can only take 24 exposures. That's it.
Yep.
And then you like come up with your story. Maybe you're only picking 3 out of those 24 that are the
Yeah.
eventual like story that you're telling. But those sorts of limiting yourself. I'm only going to use one lens. I'm only going to
Yep.
use whatever, like you said, I'm only going to use certain settings. Those sorts of things. Or yeah, the one of the earlier lessons I was, lessons and challenges I was given as a photographer when I was young, was that I had that same response of like, oh, there's nothing interesting to take photos of.
Yeah.
And this person told me there are 10 stories within 10 feet of you
Yep.
at any point in time, wherever you are, find them.
Yeah.
Like from right now, like in the room that you were in, find 10 stories to tell and like what you could be taking pictures of. And like that sort of like actually sitting down and focusing on something in a creative way and giving yourself the, like you said, like do it every day. John Cleese has a wonderful speech about being creative. And it's like, you have to practice being
Yeah.
creative. You have to do it all the time. You have to like, if you don't do it, then you're not going to get better at it.
Yeah.
And like really give yourself the time to, and we mentioned, being able to fail at it earlier, but like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. But, like you're learning something from that and, giving yourself the half hour or hour to just like focus on this thing and not feel like, oh, I've got to do this. And I'm just going to like
Hmm.
rush through it just to output some sort of product or
Yeah.
content or whatever. But like,
Yeah. Right.
give yourself the freedom to explore there for an hour or however long. It might be half an hour, maybe 15 minutes, but like doing
Yeah.
something and giving yourself like total availability and focus on being creative for that period of time, whatever it is.
Well, and I think that there's a hang up sometimes where you feel like I mentioned it earlier, but you feel like you have to show everything. I think that partially is because we live in a content creation world
Right.
where you take a picture, you post it on Instagram, wherever you post your work, and that's it. Like that's just what you do. But you can go take those pictures for 15, 30, 45 minutes, whatever it is, and nobody has to see them. And a lot of the photographers that you look up to, that you're inspired by, have done that.
Right.
Guaranteed. They have taken pictures and went through seasons of growth and learning and fine tuning their skills and their style. And then they started pushing out the work that you're so inspired by.
Right. There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of, they gave themselves the room to grow over time instead of thinking I've got to be at the top from day one, and I've got
Yep.
to be at the, I have to be at the, I have to reach the mountaintop, and then then everything falls into place. I think there's a rush to feel the need for perfection. As
Mm-hmm.
someone who struggles with perfectionism for many years, letting go of that and being like, hey, this is you know. I joke with my wife. I will go back and look at. I have, you know, I will go out and take pictures of things I enjoy taking pictures of, flowers or whatever it is. Like these are not work
Mm-hmm.
related things, and then I'll come back to them a year or 2 years later, like it's because I've just sort of piled them all into folders, and then it
Yeah.
goes. Then when I have time, in the off season or whatever, I'm gonna look at this stuff, and I'll look through them, and she'll hear me I'll yell to her from there. I'm like, I'm actually a pretty good photographer. And she's like, yeah, you are a very good photographer. I'm like, yeah, but I'm looking at this stuff and they're good. They're
Yeah,
actually
right.
they've gotten good over time, and it's that you're your own worst critic most of the time, but like
Always.
allowing yourself to grow and get better
Yep.
and be more creative or whatever. Like you said, the people you look up to, sometimes they've just been putting out stuff, but you never see for years
Yep.
until they get to the point where like, okay, now, and they
Yeah.
start putting it out there. Or sometimes it's like, look at Vivian Mayer, who
Yep.
never showed anybody
Yep.
her. Hell,
Yep.
she even almost never saw her work. It's like she very rarely
Right.
printed her stuff, like that, which blows my mind.
She just shot, and wasn't it a son or grandson that found it, or
No, it was
I
just like
no, I can't.
it was a guy who was researching for like photos of Chicago,
Oh yeah.
and he went to like an old, like he was like buying up. He found an old trunk
Yeah.
full of her negatives.
And it's just incredible work
Yeah,
that
mind blowing
she
work.
yeah, that she photographed because she loved to take photos.
Yeah.
Talk about a shooter, right?
Yes.
Like,
She didn't
she
get.
was a shooter.
She didn't develop like most of her work. Like it's
Yeah.
just like just taking pictures. She was just out there taking
Just
pictures, which I went to. uh there was an exhibition of her work at Photographica in New York last year, and I got to go for the press opening, and just seeing the things that she did over and over again,
mm,
but never seeing the output. Like, how do you know like she was just, it was all in her head. Like she just like
yeah.
do like the reflective stuff. It's just
Yeah.
like, her
Mind
compositions are,
blowing.
yeah. She was the composition is incredible, like all
Yeah.
around. Yeah. But that's the sort of thing, like you said, people aren't looking at it. They don't let it out there into the world. Sometimes it never gets let out into the world.
Yeah.
Somebody finds it years, decades later. I think he found those photos the year that she passed away. Like she became like
Yeah.
internet famous, like the year that she died, and never knew that people like what people thought of her work. Um,
Yeah.
but she was intensely private too. She didn't want people
Yeah.
seeing that stuff.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of artists have gone that route of just doing it because they love it,
Yeah.
and then not gaining any recognition until after they've died. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And because like somebody else sees it and says, this is really good. There's a lot of times I think we're our own worst enemies,
yep.
where we think this is no good. Nobody wants to see this. And I mean, now with you're such a slave in ways to the algorithm
Yeah.
whether or not like you could be putting out amazing work and nobody sees it, even if you're
Yep.
throwing it out there on social media, like just it happens to do with whatever the algorithm is, and like the chance that somebody with some clout
Runs.
finds it and goes, "Hey, you should be checking this person's work out."
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
it's nuts, and yeah, I think that people do it for yourself. Do it
Yep.
for yourself. I think
Well,
that
and have when you get to the point where you have a body of work for a project or anything, share it with a close person or group of people that you respect the opinions of. Some of the things that best editing back that I've gotten has been talking to my dad and showing my dad my projects. And I mean, he loves me and he's very proud of me, but uh, he can be brutally honest uh, about things. And that's helpful. It's helpful to have people that, uh, as long as you're in a place where you can take that honesty
yeah.
about things, like full transparency on my website, he hates my name, how it's squiggled out. He's like, "You don't need that. That's gimmicky." I'm like, I think it's kind of cool.
That's where we disagree, Dad.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Well, it's
but
my website,
yeah,
so
it's my business, and you don't
yeah,
get to control that. I think that I think having those people that you know will be honest with you and tell you like what they feel is really important, and it's something I think that you mentioned like you have to be at the right place to take that.
yeah,
I think some people aren't at that place,
yeah,
and really kind of being ready for it. And I think that, I mean, in my own experience, I think I would have been better off like asking earlier, because I think I was living in
mm,
my own head
yeah,
too much, thinking that, you know, things weren't any good. And then just in the recent years of like showing people like my personal stuff and like, oh, this is what and they're like, this is like people
yeah,
who I trust going like, this is really good. Why didn't you show this to anybody? And I'm
yeah,
like,
right.
really? I'm like, yeah. Um, yeah, people whose opinion I trust on art and not just like being honest with me. But yeah, it's that sort of like get to that place where you can look for the honest feedback can
Yeah,
really help you in a lot of ways.
yeah. It'll
Accepting,
help you grow as a photographer, as a storyteller. Um, I know there's one photo that I love, and almost almost unanimously, the people that I show this series to, it's on my website. Um, they'll say it's too busy. I can't comprehend everything that's in it. I'm like, yeah, but I love this picture.
yeah,
But it's like, yeah, it's too busy. Doesn't fit with it. I'm like, okay, so there's a term in video editing um, called "kill your darlings," and
yes,
it's uh, I'm sure it's in other things as well, but just finding those things that you might have gotten a little bit too close to, a little bit too attached to, but they don't serve the greater story.
yes. This is back in my teachers in college would tell me like, don't be so soft on yourself.
Yeah.
The jokes that only you get in your
Yeah.
writing, because I had a writing degree,
Okay.
and like they'd look at it and go like, okay, you're the only person who's going to get this, and maybe
Yeah.
like 0.01% of other people are going to get this joke or this reference that you made. Like you need to think slightly larger than that. Like, yeah, it's fine
Yeah.
to have like the deep cut stuff, but like you need to, like you said, it's kill your darlings is a widespread, like there are
Yeah.
things that you've grown too attached to and that you feel like too personally connected with, and sometimes you need to edit
Yep.
or rethink. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's like you reminded me of like when you go to a wedding and it's time for the toasts and it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit through 15 to 20 minutes of inside jokes that nobody else in the room understands, but it's special for
Yeah, for them. And I think that that's, oh man, as a wedding photographer, the best speeches are the ones that are like 2 minutes.
Yep.
There's a joke at the beginning. There is some heartfelt stuff that makes you kind of get teary in the middle, and then you end with a joke, and that's it.
Yep.
That's like those are the best speeches. Short, heartfelt, succinct. Just get it, and with a little bit of humor that everyone's going to understand.
Yep.
Uh, Otherwise, we're all like, Where's my meal ready yet?
Yeah,
Can I get
exactly.
another drink? Is the waitress here? Can I order
Can
something?
we eat and then dance and leave, please?
Hey, photographers, tired of spending hours culling, editing, and publishing your photos? Narrative does it all for you faster and smarter. With AI photo culling, you can quickly sort through thousands of images to find the best shots. With AI editing, you can customize edits to match your personal style effortlessly. And with publishing made simple, you can share stunning blogs with ease. Save time, stay creative, and let narrative handle the heavy lifting. When you use the link in the episode notes to try narrative, you get 10% off and an additional 200 credits for edits. What are you waiting for? Try narrative today. Visit the link in the episode notes and get started for free. Hey there, listeners. It's time for what I like to call a little shameless self promotion. After years of planning and trying to get this project done, I have finally launched my online print shop. Yes, you can buy prints of my photos. That way you can support a small business and the podcast at the same time. Just head over to the link in the episode notes and check it out. There are photos from Scotland, Italy, France. There's wildlife photos. There are amazing flower photos. And there are photos of the city I called home for 20 years, New York City. So many pictures to choose from, and there are more coming as I get the time to process them and edit them and get them online. You can choose from fine art prints, metallic prints, acrylic prints, and there are tons of sizes to choose from, whatever you might need. So, what are you waiting for? Bring some beauty to your walls and some inspiration to your life with a print from my fine art print shop. Just click on the link in the episode notes. Go do it. Hey, hey, hey. And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. Ugh, this is always death. True or false? Some animals can smell water.
True.
It is true. Elephants can smell water from miles away. Although it is possible
Mm,
that they have simply learned to detect the smell of other animals and plants frequently found in or around water, it is believed that they can actually smell the water itself.
wow. Elephants are incredible.
Elephants are amazing. Elephants are the elephants, dolphins, octopi.
Yep.
When the aliens come out of the ocean finally, I think they're going to be having discussions with those creatures.
Yeah,
Lucas,
exactly.
thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find you on the interwebs if they want to see your work or just connect with you?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram, my website, or on YouTube. That's where I frequent the most. All of it is Lucas Vanderlinde, with a K, Lukas. Uh, and yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You're welcome back anytime. I'll include those links in the episode notes if people want to just go there and click on those so they don't have to try to type it in or search for them.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a nightmare of a name. I get it.
Lucas, thanks again. Come back anytime.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my discussion with Lucas Vanderlinde and that you maybe got a little inspiration to start your own photography project. You can find links to Lucas's website and social media profiles in the episode notes. And while you're following, be sure to follow the Nerdy Photographer at the Nerdy Photo on pretty much, all the social media platforms. Am I going to list them? Nah, I think you've heard them before. Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, the big ones. Whatever, you can find us there at the Nerdy Photo. No dots, underscores, or dashes. The Nerdy Photo. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on future conversations with amazing photographers.
Snug?
Well, I'm really glad that you like it. I think it perfectly captures the eating a sandwich side of your personality. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.